What's going on, guys? My name is Christopher, and welcome to It's Complicated, the show where I talk about and showcase wristwatches. So if you love watches like I do, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button, then click on the bell, and you're all set. Today, I'm going to be telling you a story on how I actually tried to bribe an authorized dealer. Here we go. So last week I went inside a Rolex authorized dealer and I was chatting with who I thought at the time was a salesman. We were going back and forth. We were talking about the current market and yada, 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 and what's going on. And by the time I introduced myself to who I was and I found out who this guy was, it turns out he was the owner of the authorized dealer. So I tell him about the show and how I recently sold my Omega Speedmaster and how I have a Submariner date and I have a date just, and we're just going on and on. And then I had an idea. So I looked at the guy and I said, listen, take no offense when I say this, please, no offense. I said, however, I said, what if you and I worked out a deal where you sold me one of these new Rolex Batmans and I paid $1,000 for, let's say, my receipt. And that's how I put it out there. And with very little hesitation, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, no. He told me that he had just gotten an email from Rolex, and this has been happening through a lot of other ADs. People have been bribing the owners, giving extra money to receive watches, and that email said that they are absolutely not to do these things. Now, I'm not going to tell you that people aren't going to break the rules, because of course they are, but this guy wasn't having it. At least I wasn't a valued enough customer, because that's really what it all comes down to. Now, I've talked about this before, these waiting lists and how to get one of these Rolex professional watches, but at the end of the day, you have to be a valued customer. And when I say valued customer, I mean you have to spend big money at these authorized dealers. And that's part of the reason why prices on eBay are so sky high right now for some of these watches like the Rolex Pepsi. And people who are absolutely rich, that's why they end up spending $20,000, $17,000, etc. for some of these Rolex professional models, which are only retailed at $92.50. Why walk into an AD and buy bracelets and earrings and rings and etc., when you could just buy it on eBay and be done with it? But I figured, hey, I offer this guy another $1,000. I mean, this is his business. Here's another $1,000 straight cash to just sell me a watch, and denied. And that goes to show you in what an absolute seller's market we are in right now. Can you imagine if I was, for example, a car dealership and you walked in there and you said, hey, I will give you $1,000 extra to sell me that car. And I looked at you and said, no. That's crazy. Love them or hate them, these stainless steel professional Rolex watches right now are just on fire, and I don't see them coming down anytime soon. Although I do think that there is going to be a cap. I don't think that the prices are going to keep going up, because they can't keep going up. You know, you got a Rolex Batman selling on eBay for $17,000. It's not going to keep going up. Somebody might spend $17,500 or maybe even $18,000, but eventually it'll come back down a little bit, because at what point do you just say, you know what, I can go buy a Patek Philippe, I can go buy an Audemars Piguet, I can go buy a Vacheron Constantin. You see what I mean? But that doesn't change the fact that some of these stainless steel Rolex watches are selling for almost double what their MSRP is. And going back to the whole bribing the AD thing, I don't know at what dollar range he would consider my offer at, but I'm not going to spend more than $1,000 over MSRP on that Rolex Batman that I want. And that's something that the owner of that AD was telling me as well, is he thinks it's okay to pay a little over MSRP to grab a watch that you want. But he doesn't think that these eBay prices are very fair, nor does he think these eBay prices are going to hold their range in the long term. You know, you got a watch that retails for $9,250, selling for $17,000. In 10 years, is that going to be worth $17,000? Especially if they're going to keep making that watch for another 5, 7 years, 10 years? Probably not. And that's really it. Just a quick story I wanted to share with you guys, and a couple of my thoughts as well. And that wraps up another episode of It's Complicated. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, like this video, share it with all your friends, and I'll see you next time on another episode of It's Complicated.